Swayam Prabha. Digital India. Educated India.
This video is for the subject of education and the course is B.Ed. The paper from which this video belongs to is Child Development and Learning, and the module or the topic is Learning and Development Theories. And today in this lecture we are going to discuss Vygotsky's social cultural theory of development. The course coordinator as well as the subject matter expert for this video is Dr. Iram Khan from Jamia Millia Islamia, New Delhi. And the academic expert or reviewer for this video is Professor Jasim Ahmed from Jamia Millia Islamia, New Delhi. This video is produced under the project DTH Swayam Prabha channels of MHRD, New Delhi. Hello dear students, I am Dr. Iram Khan, Assistant Professor at IASC Faculty of Education, Jamia Millia Islamia, New Delhi. Today I am going to extend the discussion on learning and development theories, and the topic which is going to be covered today is Vygotsky's socio-cultural theory of development. So first of all, let us have a look on who Lev Vygotsky was. Basically, he was a Soviet psychologist, and he was born in 1896. Uh, he began his work following the Russian Revolution in 1917, in most closely identified with the socio-cultural theory. Basically, he was a socio-cultural theorist. So Vygotsky developed a socio-cultural approach to children's development where cognitive as well as socio-cultural issues both were taken care of. He developed his theories at around the same time as Jean Piaget. Like he was the contemporary to Jean Piaget. Uh, like although the ideas of Vygotsky were based on society and social development and socio-cultural developments, but still the thought process of Jean Piaget was also somehow influencing him. So according to Vygotsky's socio-cultural theory, no single principle, like in case of Piaget, we have seen that there was equilibration, which was actually the main focus, uh, the focal point of the entire development process, the entire cognitive development theory, because the child was supposed to come to the point where equilibration happens. So this type of thought process was there in Piaget's theory, but in case of Vygotsky's theory, there was a different scenario. So what Vygotsky said, that the socio-cultural theory of Vygotsky basically says that it cannot account anything, any sort of development cannot account uh, only on one aspect of the growth of the children. Actually, individual development cannot be understood without reference to the social and cultural context within within which there are a lot of things which are actually embossed or embedded. So the development of a child in the various dimensions or aspects of this child's personality, including development of higher mental processes, has its origin in socio-cultural processes. So this was basically the thought process of Vygotsky. So now let us see the Vygotsky's socio-cultural theory of development. What exactly this theory has to say? Because we are in today's discussion, we have to see all the aspects which were covered by Vygotsky in terms of different issues. So it's a detailed discussion. So first of all, let us have a kind of introduction of the socio-cultural theory of development given by Vygotsky. So, as we have already seen that Vygotsky, who was a Russian psychologist, he developed the theory of cognitive development, known as the socio-cultural theory of cognitive development. And this was the early 20th century when this theory was worked on by Vygotsky. So the main assertion of the Vygotsky's theory is that the cognitive development of children is advanced through social interaction with other people, particularly those who are more skilled or they are more knowledgeable. So in other words, Vygotsky believed that social learning comes before cognitive development and that children construct knowledge actively. So, according to Vygotsky, society plays the most important role in the development of a child, which is actually different from the view which was given by Piaget. So what Vygotsky has said in terms of cognitive development, his theory actually postulates that social interaction is fundamental to cognitive development. So Vygotsky's theory is comprised of concepts such as or culture-specific tools, then language and thought interdependence. Then there is a specific concept given by Vygotsky, which is zone of proximal development. Then the theoretical concepts presented by him provided part of the foundation for constructivism. Constructivism, which is the so-called very kind of important term in today's scenario. So this theory given by Vygotsky has actually provided the base for the theory of constructivism. His theory is basically the theory of constructivism also. So this theory of Vygotsky have contributed greatly to the restructuring of formal education system. How it did so it will be discussed in this discussion. So Vygotsky's cognitive development theory argues that cognitive abilities are socially guided and constructed. So as such, culture serves as a mediator for the formation and development of specific abilities, such as we can take all those abilities names like learning, memory, attention, problem solving, and many more. So it is proposed that culture-specific tools play an integral role in the way children organize and think about the entire world in which they are proceeding. So this is some sort of introduction to Vygotsky's cognitive development theory. So now let us see a few of the points which were very broadly discussed, and whenever we are talking about this theory of Vygotsky, these points are actually very much talked about. So let us see that how the socio-cultural process, which is related to developing child, affects and influences the child's development. So the points which we will be discussing today will be, the first point is development as a function of learning carried out in socio-cultural environment of the child. So according to Vygotsky, individual development in all its dimensions is in fact an acquired phenomenon realized through a person's learning efforts. So like we have seen that in case of Piaget, the Piaget's notion was that the children's development must necessarily precede their learning. So on the contrary, Vygotsky has given a different view. He argued that learning is a necessary and universal aspect of the process of developing culturally organized, specifically human psychological function. So we can say that social learning trends to precede development, uh, which is actually basically coming before the development. The social learning is taking place. So before the actual learning or the formal learning, social learning starts. So in this case, social learning is made possible through a person's social interaction that enables this person or this child to get the desired development in all dimensions or aspects of a person's personality. So regarding the role of learning in development, Vygotsky basically said, or he believed, that everything is learned on two levels. So the first level, according to Vygotsky, is that through interaction with others, and then integrated into the individual's mental structure. So, emphasizing on this aspect, Vygotsky has actually mentioned that every function in the child's cultural development appears twice. First on the social level and later on the individual level. So, first between people, which is inter-psychological, and then inside the child, which is intra-psychological. So, this applies equally to voluntary attention, to logical memory, and to the formation of concepts. All the higher functions originate as actual relationships between individuals. So these are the words of Vygotsky regarding the process of socio-cultural development. So then let us talk about the children's cognitive and socio-cultural development, which was in a way depicted by Vygotsky. So, according to Vygotsky, children's cognitive development and social development are closely related. So, as we can say that a child's cognitive development is very much influenced by the level of his or her social development, as well as the impact of his social interaction and culture uh, uh, in which this child is actually growing up, uh, from where he belongs to, is actually playing a lot of role, or is very much impactful in terms of the child's social development. So we have to see that Vygotsky tried to explain the cognitive development of the child in a close relation of social and cultural influences through some specific concepts and views which were expressed by him. So we will have a look on all those specific concepts and all those particular terminologies which were given by Vygotsky. So we will also see that what exactly the whenever we are talking about Vygotsky's theory, there are certain things which we have to actually emphasize. So first thing which we are going to emphasize is that uh, children make use of culturally determined tools for intellectual adaptation. This is the first point which was mentioned by Vygotsky. So regarding the process of cognitive development in the children, basically, Piaget was of the view that every child is born with certain motor reflexes and sensory abilities for basically development, and in the process of cognitive development. But on the contrary to Piaget, Vygotsky said that infants are born with certain basic materials or abilities for intellectual development, which can be referred to. The first point which he mentioned was attention, then sensation, then perception, and memory. So these were the four uh, basic terminologies which were given by Vygotsky in terms of discussing about the intellectual development: attention, sensation, perception, and memory. So Vygotsky referred these four uh, as tools of intellectual or cognitive adaptation. So a child's intellectual or cognitive capacity is developed in the way as these four tools are found to help him in this particular task. So whenever the development and refinement of these tools are quite social and cultural or culture specific, we have to see this also, that all these tools like attention, sensation, perception, and memory, these are very much in cultural, or you can say that they are very much culture specific. So these are picked up and developed in the child through social interaction and social learning. This was a strong belief of Vygotsky that community plays a central role in the process of making meaning, or the meaning making process, which is basically the crux of constructivism. So he said, according to Vygotsky, according to his belief, he said that community plays a central role in the process of meaning making, or the making of meaning. So a child's intellectual development cannot be understood without reference to the social and cultural context within which this child is actually uh, living or residing. So this is what basically this is the, how the children make use of culturally determined tools for intellectual adaptation. Now let us see the effects of social influences on children's cognitive and socio-cultural development, which is the next point on which Vygotsky has given a lot of emphasis. So, just like Piaget, Vygotsky also believed that young children are curious and actively involved in their own learning and the discovery and development of new understandings, or which Piaget has named the schemas. So, but Vygotsky placed more emphasis on social contributions. So here we can see that in few of the points, Vygotsky actually uh, has given credit or he has actually acknowledged to Piaget. So, but he has given more emphasis on social life and social contributions. So the process of development, he said that whereas Piaget is emphasizing more on self-initiated discovery, but in case of Vygotsky, he said that social interactions are much more important. So Vygotsky has given uh, uh, much importance to learning by the child. He said that learning by the child occurs through interaction with a skillful or more knowledgeable other. So this more knowledgeable other concept is very much novel to this theory of Vygotsky. So according to Vygotsky, much important learning by the child occurs through interaction with a skillful or more knowledgeable other, which can be also called as MKO, abbreviation of more knowledgeable other or more knowledgeable one. So this person, this MKO, can be anybody. He or she can be a tutor, maybe a parent, or the or a friend, or a person from the peer group. So anybody who is having a bit of more knowledge can be this MKO. So the MKO has the capacity to model behaviors and to provide verbal instructions for this particular child. So this child can actually have interactions and communication in order to learn more. So this more knowledgeable other is very important in the learning process of this child. So Vygotsky referred to this as a cooperative or collaborative dialogue. So he has given very much importance on collaboration, on dialogues, on discussions. So the child first tries to understand the action or instructions to guide or regulate his own performance, resulting in his proper cognitive and social development. So in this way, much of the cognitive and social development of the child takes place on account of this child's interaction with his or her social environment, and particularly the person he thinks know more than him. So uh, he is or she is in close relationship or in close contact with a person who is knowing more, which is playing a role of MKO for this child in a very kind of good social environment. So the learning is happening very properly. So this child can learn so many simple things by just observing and imitating the behavior of others. But for the higher order cognition, this child has to take active help and guidance from the more knowledgeable others or more knowledgeable ones. So now let us see that what exactly we mean by this more knowledgeable other. If we need to define, then how it will be. So in order to explain how the process of social interaction helps a child in his learning and the subsequent intellectual development, Vygotsky put forward uh, two new concepts. First, we have already discussed, which is MKO, but we will see that how we can define or more emphasize. And the other concept, which is the concept of zone of proximal development, which can be abbreviated as ZPD. So first of all, let us see what these terms mean and how Vygotsky used them for putting up his theory of socio-cultural development. So the first one is MKO, or more knowledgeable other. So the more knowledgeable other is somewhat, uh, you can like, just by the name you can see that it is very much self-explanatory. It refers to someone who has a better understanding of a higher level of ability than the learner with respect to a particular task, process, or concept. So in case of, suppose the child has to solve a sum of mathematics, so here the MKO can be a person who is already knowing this particular sum. So this, with some taking some help or some sort of interaction with this particular person who is already knowing the sum, the child can actually go on solving the sum. So here this person who is knowing the sum is the MKO. So although the implication is that the MKO is a teacher or an older adult, this is not every time the case. In few of the cases we can see that the teachers are actually the MKOs, but that is not the case which have to be always there. So maybe a person who is younger than the learner but knows more on that particular topic can be the MKO for a particular topic. So this is something which is not a kind of essential. So many times a child's peer or the elder children may be the individuals with more knowledge or experience. So we can say that, for example, like, take an example, that a child who knows more about the diversified application of a mobile phone or a kind of device which is having some sort of new thing which is loaded in it. So uh, this child is knowing more than even the elders. So here the person who is knowing more about this device will be the more knowledgeable other who can teach to a person who is even elder to him or her. So this more knowledgeable others definition can change in actually different situations. Whosoever is knowing more about that particular task which is being taught can be the MKO. Now, the next point, which is the most important after MKO, and this point is given by Vygotsky, and this is known as zone of proximal development, or ZPD. So this second aspect of Vygotsky's theory is the idea that the potential for cognitive development depends on the zone of proximal development, which is an important concept that relates to the difference between that a child can achieve independently and what a child can achieve with guidance and an encouragement from a skilled or more knowledgeable partner. So in this way, zone of proximal development is actually it represents that particular zone or area where a child can solve a problem with the assistance, which here can be also you can compare it with the process of scaffolding. If we just go to the literal meaning of scaffolding, it is basically whenever we are building a big structure or a big building, whenever we are trying to make the upper stories, we provide some sort of assistance by different logs or iron rods, so that a kind of support is provided to the building, and we can just prepare the building very properly. So this support is basically scaffolding. So whenever we are trying to teach to a child, this assistance or scaffolding is provided, and whenever this zone is decided, that this particular zone where scaffolding is being provided, and the scaffolding is provided by the more knowledgeable other or an adult or a more able peer, this particular zone can be acknowledged as ZPD. So proximal, the meaning of proximal is basically the next. So uh, it carries two meanings. The one is that for the child in his or her task of problem solving or behavior modification, the person lying next to him in knowledge and experience, who is a bit of superior, can help a lot. So this is the first meaning of the next, and then the other meaning, where uh, the next level, when we are trying to learn something, we actually go step by step. We learn the first step, and then we go to the second step, and then the third step. So coming from the first step to the next step and then to the next step is basically, we can say that we actually change our proximal levels. So here the child can learn and develop uh, intellectually and socially more in supervision or collaboration with the adults or peers. So in this second meaning, the term proximal or next conveys that key to stretching the learner for taking him or her on the path of cognitive and social development basically rests on the part of adults to know well in advance what lies in that person's ZPD, to what extent he can or she can be helped to go ahead on the path of his cognitive and social development in view of this person's existing potential. So we can say, we can actually make a kind of assumption that we cannot provide a impossible task to anybody. So whenever we are actually giving some sort of training or some sort of task, we first take a test, or take a kind of assessment. We do one assessment of the child to see that whether this child can perform this task or not. So if there is some sort of possibility, then only we go ahead and give the training to this child. So we actually assess that whether this this particular skill or task is under uh, the, the zone of proximal development. It can be in the zone of proximal development of this child or not, or it is beyond the zone of proximal development. If it is beyond, then we should avoid to actually force some sort of learning or some sort of skill training to a child. The ZPD, or the zone of proximal development of children, according to Vygotsky, depend on a number of factors, or there are a lot of things which actually are responsible for this zone of proximal development. So which can be the age of the child, their their individuality, or how they actually uh, relate to themselves. So then the different nature of the impact of home and family. So here the society comes. Then society, then again the community, the society, the culture in which these children are brought up. So these are the various factors which actually are very much impactful on this ZPD of the child. So the circumference of the children, this basically the area, or because if you can see this model of ZPD, so it's a circular model. So that's why I'm taking the name of circumference. The circumference of the children get widened at the child's advances in their age. They get opportunities for learning and are exposed to wider social and cultural experiences. So if we take both of the terms together, the MKO and the ZPD, they form the basis of the scaffolding component of the cognitive apprenticeship model of instruction. So this is a particular model. In this particular regard, Vygotsky explained that when a student is at the ZPD for a particular task, providing the appropriate assistance or scaffolding, it is going to give the student enough boost or motivation to achieve the task. Once the student, with the benefit of scaffolding, masters the task, the scaffolding can then be removed, and the student will then be able to complete the task again on his own. So first time, just for the first time, we have to assist him. We have to provide some sort of assistance or scaffolding, and then we can remove the scaffolding, we can remove the assistance once this understanding has happened, and for the second, third, fourth time the child will be in a position to do the task on his or her own. So this is the cognitive apprenticeship model of instruction, which is which has its roots in the theory of Vygotsky. So now let us see the socio-cultural factors in language development, because Vygotsky has talked about language development a lot, which is actually a very important factor in the personality of a child, the communication. So Vygotsky's socio-cultural theory clearly emphasizes that the language a child uses for the communication is all learned through the child's interaction and communication with the members of the society and culture from where he is coming from. So the initial lessons of this child's language development are learned by a child in the company of the first teacher is mother. So in the company of the mother, or maybe a caretaker or a caregiver, and other members of the family. So this is the family language or mother tongue. Then the neighborhood, peer group, school, and community influences. Then adding to this child's language development further, uh, as this child is growing up, his interaction circle gets widened. So all these people, this neighborhood, peer, school, community, they all influence and add up to this language and learning process of this child through their interaction. So the development of language among the children may be seen a clear handiwork of the forces and factors present in the socio-cultural environment of the child. Uh, Now let us see that how Vygotsky talked about the role of language as a tool for the cognitive and intellectual development of the children. So Vygotsky differentiated between three forms of language. According to him, there are three forms of languages. The first is the social speech, which is, according to him, according to Vygotsky, the first form is social speech, which is external communication used to talk to others, and which is a kind of typical form of language which we can see in up to the age of 2. Then there is the next type of speech, which is private speech, which we can see typically from the age of 3. This private speech is directed to the self and serves as an intellectual functioning. Basically, this is used for communicating with others. Then comes the third form of speech, which is the private speech. What is this private speech? Private speech goes underground, diminishing in audibility as it takes on a self-regulating function and is transformed into silent inner speech. And according to Vygotsky, this is typical from the age of 7. We will actually try to understand all these three uh, in a much more emphasized way. So the internalization of language is important as it drives the child to this child's needed gradual cognitive development. The child makes use of inner speech as an important tool for necessary thinking about the processes and activities necessary for the task of problem solving, and in this way allowing himself or herself to be developed intellectually as well as socially. So both of the developments actually go on and take place simultaneously. Intellectual development is also going on, as well as the society, like in the society the child is also growing up and is developing socially. So these were all those particular things which were related to language development, and language development plays a very important role in the child's acceptance in the society. Now, because we people have to see what exactly are the educational implications or the implications of this theory in the classroom. So let us see how Vygotsky's social cultural theory may be found to carry with a number of useful instructional and classroom implications. So let us see first. According to Vygotsky, the children from their early childhood have to make use of a set of four abilities which were named as attention, sensation, perception, and memory. These are the tools for their needed intellectual or cognitive adaptation. So, in the classroom learning and instruction, the proper equipping of the child with these four abilities pay a quite like rich kind of impact. So, due care from the very beginning should be taken for the development as well as utilizing these abilities for the proper learning, grasping, and application of the facts, learned and experiences gained in and outside the school environment. So the children should be trained to pay attention, utilize their abilities of sensation and perception fully while observing the things and phenomena, and remember the learned and practiced things for their needed application in further learning and utilization of these learnings in their life. So in this way, they are making use of attention, sensation, perception, and memory, which are, according to Vygotsky, the tools for intellectual or cognitive adaptation. So this was the first classroom implication. Then the second thing it can be taken as that according to Vygotsky, the development of the children is very much culture specific. And in this way, when a child comes to the school, basically this child brings with him the level of cognitive, social, emotional, and language development and potential background for the school learning, basically which is determined by the social and cultural environment of this child's home, family, community, and the culture. So every sort of experiences are actually taken whenever the child is coming to the school. So the teacher and the or any of those uh, like trainers or somebody who is playing the role of MKO should always have in view of all these individual differences among the students before actually providing them the scaffolding or help or guidance in order to actually provide them the learning experiences. So we have to be very much careful about that this child is not a blank slate. Basically, he has got some experiences which are the outcomes of from where he's coming from which culture he belongs to. So these are the most important things which we have to take care of. But the next point, actually, in the next point, Vygotsky's view concerning ZPD also provided us quite useful hint about the abilities, experiences, and skills of the teachers or anybody who is playing the role of a more knowledgeable other, maybe a guide or a counselor, who is interested with the or who has given the responsibility or the task of providing the needed assistance to the children in their learning and development process. So these people should be sufficiently more knowledgeable, experienced, trained, and competent than the students they are guiding, training, or teaching. So this is to be very much like very efficiently seen that the teacher or the person who is playing the role of MKO has to be more knowledgeable. Then only this person can take the child from the level which where he or she is not able to learn something to the level where with the help of this assistance or the scaffolding uh, he or she can learn, so which will be the area which can be signified as ZPD. So Vygotsky's views concerning the ZPD also provide direction and guidelines for setting the curriculum and planning and teaching learning experiences for the individual learners in view of their generalized and specific ZPD levels. So what learning experiences should be provided in a particular grade or age level to the developing children? This is actually something which is to be decided by the curriculum planners. So how and to what extent should these get enriched as the student steps in the higher grades? The concept of ZPD is actually helpful for these curriculum planners um, in enlightening them in towards the path of developing a proper curriculum or syllabus or planning for the teaching learning experiences. Then the next implication can be that which is related to language development. Language plays a very significant role, as we have seen that Vygotsky has given very much emphasis, very much importance to language development, and he's according to him, language is something which is uh, which is actually responsible for the overall development of the children from their childhood till the adulthood. So the language in speech form means that the verbal, non-verbal, oral or written helps much in proper communication of ideas, views, feelings, interests and attitudes, uh, which can be between or among the people. In this way, proves us this language development proves like a strong media of social interaction, cooperation and collaboration between the human beings. As a result, according to Vygotsky, uh, which is regarding the language development or speech development, basically the speech forms a guide and inspire teachers and parents to focus properly on the development of language in its appropriate way in the children as a means of effective communication and social and cultural development. Uh, the other form of language, which is designated as private speech or self-talk by Vygotsky, is also essential as it prepares the individual to get self-motivated. We normally understand it as the voice, the inner voice, or whatever our inner self guides ourselves. So, to get self motivated, this private speech or self talk is very much important. The readiness and step-wise preparation for the execution of any of the task or behavior in the desired form, that can only be done if this self talk or private speech is strengthened. So it should be converted into a silent inner speech, uh, which can't be heard by others. But we actually, as a growing individual, we do the self talk, which only we can understand. So as a child steps into a growing responsible age, this actually happens, which we have to encourage. So what is to be done in its external form through active behavior is actually get rehearsed and executed internally in the mind by an individual through this particular inner speech. So it stands as a powerful tool for carrying out higher order thought or thought processes and behavioral functioning in a desired way. So as the time passes, with the increase of age, the child should be helped by their teachers and parents in making use of the self-talk, desirably in the form of their inner speech, for getting them well on the path of their cognitive, social, emotional, and moral development. So with this, we have now come to a kind of end to this particular theory given by Vygotsky. Let us just have a recap of what we have learned today. So we have seen that according to Vygotsky's social cultural theory of development, individual development actually can be understood through reference to the social and cultural context within uh, which the development is actually embedded. The development of a child in the various dimensions or aspects of this child's personality include development of higher mental processes, uh, which have its origin in socio-cultural processes. So according to Vygotsky, much important learning by the child for this child's needed development occurs through social interaction with a skillful or more knowledgeable other, which can be called as MKO, who may be a more knowledgeable person, anybody who is more knowledgeable than the child. And according to Vygotsky, some sort of assistance can be provided by this MKO, and this assistance uh, was termed as scaffolding by Vygotsky. So the developing child progresses on the path of knowledge construction and skill acquisition for the needed progress and development in various aspects of or dimensions of this of the personality of the child. So the development of language is also very much helpful for this child in the proper social interaction, which in turn helps the child in seeking development in one or the other aspect of the personality. So all the aspects of the personalities grow once the language, the communication, the interaction with the society actually strengthen. With the help of this MKO, the other people, the school, the teachers, the peer group, the child actually gains lots of strength in the language, and he or she can move to the zone of proximal development and goes on learning and becoming uh, becoming a proper citizen. So this was the theory of socio-cultural development by Vygotsky. We have also seen the educational implications, the classroom implications of this theory, and actually this theory forms the basis for the theory of constructivism, which is also like designated as the meaning making process, uh, which is a very kind of contemporary theory of today. So we hope that this theory is going to help you. The knowledge of this particular theory is going to help you a lot, and we will meet in another discussion and have a kind of enlightenment on some other issue. Till then, thanks from my side. Thank you so much. Dear learners, we were watching the video from the paper of Child Development and Learning, and the module which was covered was from Learning and Development Theories. The particular theory which we have discussed today is Vygotsky's socio-cultural theory of development. This video lecture was recorded by faculty at home during the national lockdown period for COVID-19 pandemic using minimal technical resources. Technical errors, if any, are unintentional and may please be ignored. For any queries with regard to this lecture or broadcast, kindly send your email to techsupport@dth.ac.in. Thank you.